right. So let's get going with the next presentation. We have Marc here. He came especially from Lausanne. And he will talk about his experiences with trying different style guide generators over 2 years, I understood. Thanks a lot.
Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to be in the designer track, even though my talk is somehow about generators, which is technical. Today I want to talk to you about what is a web style guide, how to generate it, how easy it is, and how we came from no style guide to style guide by default. My name is Marc. I don't know if you were this morning to the Dan Rubin talk, but he talked about role. And my role, software designer, was not in his talk, even though they have like a lot of them. So I role myself, I don't know if I can say that, software designer. It is like the UX guy who know how to code and know how to design. And yeah, I'm also the co-founder of Antistatic, and my name, well, I'm zufrieden, meaning I'm happy most of the time. So Antistatic, it's a web agency from Lausanne. We're a bunch of 10 enthusiasts, web enthusiasts. We try to develop web solution for user needs, and we also play ping pong. But you may have heard about us with this project. I don't know how many of you use HTML for the presentation. Raise your hand. Oh, great. So if you use HTML for your presentation, then if you push it on GitHub, you will be featured automatically here on this website. He's just referring all the HTML presentation out there. So also mine will be there. It's already here. We also have at the office a device lab. I don't know if you know what it is, but I take the opportunity of being in front of you to present what it is. It's a place where you can find like a lot of smartphones, tablets, and such. And it's free to use. You can come anytime, just drop a line and come say hi, and test your web products or even newsletters. It's great to test newsletters live on devices. Well, enough about me. We are here to talk about style guides and how awesome it would be to have it generated automatically live in the browser, etc., and have them by default. So first, a small definition that I stole it from Wikipedia. What the style guide is just a tool to set standards about a brand identity. And a web style guide, what I find interesting here, it's graphic and technique. So it means you should document how the brand identity is communicated, but also how the interaction should be designed. And the other great thing here is it should be updated often. As the project evolves, the style guide should evolve with it. So an example of traditional style guide, like corporate identity, corporate design style guide, is this. For the US Boys Code, it shows you how to use the logo, how not to use it. It's already technical. You have different kind of colors for print, web, etc. How you should use them, why they design it that way. But you may be familiar with those traditional style guide, of course. This is another example from the New York Transit Authority. It's pretty old, 1970, and it shows you how you will have to design the different panels and directions. This is a nice example. And if we're going to the web style guide, this is another example from Lonely Planet website. So they publish it widely. You can go to the URL and check it. What you can see here, they define color by variables, for instance, and they define all the UI elements, UI components that you can use everywhere. If you're working for Lonely Planet, you can refer to this when you're building a specialized landing page or any other application, intranet or anything. And you have also here the HTML directly for having a button. So you just copy paste this, this code and to your application, and it works right out of the box. So let's look what problem we are trying to solve with this. So the question is, do we really need a style guide for every project? You may think with Lonely Planet, that's a huge website. They have, I don't know, I really don't know, but maybe 200 developers, and so they need this documentation. And the thing is, why don't we create a style guide for every project? I don't know, maybe you have an idea, because it's complicated, because it's not like automatized in any way, and because we don't have time. So we were in the same case. So let's go back 3 years ago. You said 2. Yeah, I wrote 2 in the description, but it's been more than that. So I'd like to share my own experience to show you what problem we are trying to solve. So 3 years ago, we were this fresh company working together, even though we are looking in different directions. There are 2 designers there and 3 front-end developers. I let you guess who is who. And we just had these nice clients. It's actually true. They are our client. Still, those guys are really serious about their business. They have a real estate agency. They are smiling here, but that's the only time I saw them smiling. So we want these big clients, and we had to make all the digital communication for them. So meanings, newsletters, a huge website, a search engine, landing page for SEO matters. And they also build some houses somewhere, and they want a website only for these houses. And they want all those websites look the same. And so we had to find a solution. So first we say, okay, let's create a separate repository for the front-end matters, like repository for CSS. So we say that's a good idea because we want to share all the CSS between all the websites. So we did that, and we end up after a year with these kind of things. Maybe you know why. So we had 9,000 lines of code. There are 4 people working on the CSS code, and we were so afraid of breaking something. So every time the designers came with a new component, we have this landing page for a special project, we have to adapt how we present the map, for instance. And we say okay, I don't want to take the CSS I used for another website for the map, because then I don't know if it will break or something. So we were really writing a new CSS every time we're writing a new page. And that's really bad. And we came to this kind of problem. So we had a lot of duplicate code because of what I just said. We had some dead code. And there's plenty of plugins that you can use to test if you have dead CSS code. It actually browse the website, all the links, and check if some part of the CSS is used or not. So that helps, but still. And we had communication problem, because between the designer and the developer, and between the developer and between the team and the client. So the client doesn't understand, okay, I just want the same website, but with this small difference, and it costs that lot. Or the designer wants to design a new page and it doesn't have any documentation to see what components he can use or not. So communication problem. Also, it was really hard to test. You have to see the website live to test it. We have the device lab, so we can test in every device easily, but still it was really a pain. So we needed something to solve the problem. So you already know I will talk about Styleguide, but well, so I was like lost and going north to another front-end conference to like try to solve that thing. And I saw this guy, maybe you know him, Kyle Neath. He's working at GitHub, and he went with a good premise, like, okay, you have to love documentation, really, because it helps in everything. But just think why you hate documentation, and we will try to work on this to make everyone love documentation. And he actually developed his own Styleguide generator, which is KSS, which generates the Styleguide from the CSS. So here is an example of how it works in reality. So you have a small, I don't show a lot of code, so don't worry. This is like a simple CSS code showing how first level title is designed. So you have a markdown comment before your CSS declaration saying, okay, it's part of the text components chapter, you define yourself. And on the second level, we define the titles. And then, with the same syntax as you have on GitHub, you just put the HTML to render the CSS you just write. And you generate the style guide, and automatically you have this. So you see, you have like the different titles and the HTML code to use it. Well, simple. What does it solve? Before you have to, like before coding your CSS, you have to think what it is in reality. What is it a component? Okay, so can I use it in every context? Like in this sidebar and in the main section. So every time you write a new component, you have to think of a name of the component, and then you see, okay, this already exists. I can just inherit with this variation if I want. So the documentation, like this style guide, helps you think before you code. It's a great communication tool because we start with the style guide. The designer showed us the mood board and the first mock-up to set up the things. And he sits together with the front-end developer, and they start doing the style guide. And they can communicate over something, an asset, but an asset that that stay during the project and after that. So that's like a good communication tool. It's also good for the customer because you can show him and say, okay, then it's easier to make new pages or new landing pages. Involved with your project, as I said. And it's a testing platform because the style guide, you can open it in every browser. You can test your style guide in IE6 and see how it works. The same with mobile and etc. So we were pretty convinced with these arguments. So yeah, and it stands for a better web, of course. As I said, we were pretty convinced, so we tried all the tools available in the market, which is like Styledoco, this KSS, Knit Style Guide, and another one. I don't know about quite every of them. And as every developers, we say, no, we can do it better. So we developed our own, which is YSS, which we don't use anymore, but and this is how it works. This is the style guide from our website, and it shows you all the elements. You can define more than, I think, 3 or 4 levels in your style guides. You can also add JavaScript documentation there. And 2 years later, meaning, I should put an S, meaning this year, we were hired to produce only a web style guide, because we started like 2 years ago talking about this style guide, talking about our tool. And the Swiss administration, they had this problem. They want to have the same layout for every website of the Confederation. And they had this mock-up, and they want some tools for the developer. So we say, okay, that's the first time for us that someone came with the design and the output is only the style guide. So that came pretty serious. And this is how it looks. We decided not to use our own tool because it's not that sustainable if we are the only maintainer. So we went with Hologram, another kid in the market that you can use to generate style guide, which it's the one we use now for every project. You have more like capability. You can use all the markdown syntax. You can either show tables, and you can make more thing with a hologram, like firing JavaScript and these kind of things. So it makes it really, really more powerful. So now you should see how we came from like no documentation to style guide by default. But you may think like, yeah, okay, but that doesn't seem easy. This hologram, all the things. Should I use the terminal? Well, and now we want to see how easy it would be to have the style guide by default, and why you should do it by default. So to have this generated style guide, it should be really easy. And I want to like talk about all the tools we use and why we created a recipe to make it even easier. So to have something to start with, we took Bootstrap. I want to talk more about this during this session, but I'm available at the lunch if you want to talk about that topics. We find it great to have this as a base because it's tested in every browser, and regarding also the accessibility. So we take Bootstrap, which has already a lot of elements. We took Bower, which is like package manager. You can manage the dependencies. And the idea is all the code you write should be isolated from the other libraries you load. And then you only update your code, and you're only responsible for your design. We also use Hologram, which is the application that read your CSS and generate this style guide accessible in the browser. Then we created Holostrap between Hologram and Bootstrap. It's simply like some CSS files that describe that the document Bootstrap. So right out of the box, you install this recipe, and you'll have all the Bootstrap elements documented. Then we developed Cortana, which is a theme for Hologram. Yeah, I didn't mention that, but we use Hologram for the Swiss administration because they wanted their own theme for the style guide. So this hologram allows that. You can build on top of this generator some layout, some also CSS to render the style guide the way you want. And by building Cortana, we also add a search engine to the style guide. Then you can directly go to the alerts or to the, I don't know, card components. And Gulp. Who use Gulp in the audience? Okay, who use Grunt? Okay. Well, it's pretty the same. we use Gulp to automatize all that. So when you update anything in your CSS code, it will reload the style guide, and you will see the changes live. And because it takes, I don't know, 2 hours to install all that tools and configure them and name the variables and etc. We built a recipe with a Yeoman, which is pretty easy to do, but when you have to do it. So you just type yo style guide and voila. I said it would be easy, so really it is. Of course, if you want to build this not on Bootstrap, then you can build with your own CSS, it doesn't matter. But the idea is it should be really easy. You should just concentrate on your job, which is taking the design live in the browser. I did an animated GIF because I want to do the demo live with this connection. But you just type this, yo, style guide. Oh yeah, you should have the terminal. Maybe that's something not that easy, but since you have that, then so you just ask the name of the project and load the dependencies. And you will have a folder after the first installation. After that, it generates the style guide, so we'll have more folders. But you have the README file, some assets, which I will describe later, the borrow JSON with all the dependencies, the gulp file, which allows you to see what kind of task you have in the gulp, the hologram configuration, the modules are here, and package for npm. Okay, you also have this, and robot.txt that you should edit. Then if we go to the assets folder, that's where you're going to work. You already have the front-end conference 14 SCSS. That's like the main styles. And inside, you include all the components and elements you are coding in your CSS. And you can use your own structure, but we say that there's the components, there's the JavaScript-related components, and the layout. We also create like a folder which is more branding. And as you can see, there's footer HTML and header HTML. It's like simply to render the style guide. You can change what you want on the top and on the footer. So it's really easy to use and to change how the style guide appear. You also have the hologram configuration. And here you just see how the magic happens. It goes and watch about the assets file, which is source. And he's building, every time you change anything, he's building a new static website, HTML, in the style guide folder. And he used Cortana as the template. And yeah, you can, the index, the front-end homepage page of the style guide, you can write the text you want in this README file. He will load this README file, and this will be the index file of the style guide. So after you first try, you start gulp serve, and automatically it does this. So you just, here I just changed the primary color, and gulp is it's broad thing. He's watching all the time this assets folder, and every time I change anything, he starts compiling the CSS, reloading hologram, and broader thing, reloading the browser. So you don't have to do this like Alt Tab, Command S, Alt Tab, Command R, but you may be familiar also with this. So it's pretty easy, it's live, and we also have gulp deploy task. So when you want to show it to someone, if you put all the style guide on a GitHub repository, you say just gulp deploy, and it will create a GH page and put the static style guide there. So it makes it really, really easy and I think it's good when the brand publish their style guide, and that's a way to publish it and to have it on GitHub. It allows like people to open issue if something is wrong or to contribute to this. So this easy workflow is you just install all the needed tools to use Yeoman, and you tap Yo style guide, and then you have your structure. The dependencies is managed with npm and bower, and with gulp and processing you work, and this is like 2 minutes. And after you start doing your job, meaning doing some modular styles for all the components you will have on your page, and you have these powerful tools to communicate with your team, developer and designer and the client. Yeah, and you repeat the 4. So to conclude, what I want you to remember from this talk is start with a style guide. That is really something. It's this documentation really helps the way you work, the way you communicate. Communicate like the more often you can. It was also the topics of Dan Rubin this morning. But yeah, with tools you can always better communicate, I hope. Develop for future-proof. You don't know, maybe you're building a simple one-page website, but you don't know how it will evolve. And if you don't plan for like having a huge website, you never know how it can change. And it's good to have already all the elements you want, or at least a good base to start scaling your project. And think modular first. So the style guide helps you that. Think of modular element you will have in your design, and then that's really how CSS works, actually. Yeah. And all the things I showed you are open source, and we are really seeking for feedback. So if you want to contribute, you're more than welcome. And give it a try. Think of a next project, the easiest one, maybe, and try to install these tools. It's not big risk. I mean, if you don't want to use it afterward, you can take your code out of your style guide, but give it a try. It's really worth the time. Well, I'm ending here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marc, very much. So we have some time for questions. Maybe you guys take some time to think about it while I ask mine, because I also have one. So you mentioned that your team is made up of designers and developers. I was wondering how does your workflow look like when you have a new project and you're about to create a new concept, a new product design? You have the designer team, you have the developers, and then somewhere along the way the style guides are being created. How does your workflow look like, taking into consideration also the different roles?
Well, it depends, of course. It depends the project. But we start with a mood board that is validated by the client. And then we define the brand, the digital brand identity, so the digital branding. And there we can already start the style guide. We use the Bootstrap component for like most of the project. So we start designing on this, and we focus the creativity and the originality on other elements than the more functional elements. So for some projects, we have like the mockups, the Photoshop mockups, for instance. So I use Sketch and Illustrator. But we try to go to the browser as fast as possible, because we don't want to have dead deliverables. We want the deliverable to stay with the project, and that's what the style guide is. It's a living deliverable that's involved. So yeah, we try to go out of Photoshop as early as possible. And our designers, since 2 years now, they are learning to code. But I mean, you don't have to. You could be a designer and don't know how to code. You have to know the constraints of the browser to design the best you can. But you need if you don't know how to code, you need a front-end developer that know how to interpret your design, your visual design.
And that works better in this way, the transition from a design to something that is interactive.
Yeah.
Other questions? Please raise your hands.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. That was really inspiring. You said that you looked at different style guide tools, like generators, like KSS, KNIL, and so on, and then you went off and wrote your own. So I'm wondering, what prompted you to write your own? I mean, what was lacking in all those others that you felt like you have to write your own? And a second question is, now, how are you happy with the solution that you have also in comparison to those other tools?
Well, we write our own because it's fun, of course, and also because we try to contribute to the project, one of the projects, and it doesn't went well. It didn't want to merge our modifications. Mainly, we really liked this Style Loco and KNIL, I don't know how to pronounce it, style guide. This markdown really simpler than the KSS. So we really liked the other syntax than the KSS one. So we wanted to stick with this. And we wanted the style guide to be really responsive. We wanted it to be like in the website we were building. And we wanted to try it easily. That was one of the points. We want it to be pretty, so that's another point. And yeah, the one we used for 6 months or so was all written in JavaScript, and it was rendered by the browser. So it was loading the CSS by Ajax, and it was too slow for the 9,000 line project. So we ended up not using it. Like, we know it's there, you write the documentation, but you're not testing, and that's not good. So we just say, okay, let's take a weekend and write our own. And it's not that difficult. I mean, we took like already made components, like a markdown interpreter and etc. But it's not that hard. And the second question, this hologram, they have a huge community. Then, for instance, for the Swiss administration, they said like, yeah, it's not working on Windows. Well, because of the community, there were some people contributing to it. So, I mean, it's better when we are more. Like, yeah.
Actually, I have another question, but maybe someone else will. Okay, so a follow-on thing is, I've been wondering, because the big difference is that it's a living style guide, right? So it reflects the actual code.
Yeah.
But haven't you bumped into the problem that, I mean, there's I see a lot of benefits in that, but haven't you bumped into the problem that if you have a static style guide, then that is kind of the master, and if you always update your style guide live,
yeah,
don't you have a situation where you by accident kind of change something and then you don't notice at first, and then isn't that a problem?
Yeah, well, we really do as we do like backend development. So we doing release, and there's testing before releasing it. So yeah, I mean, it's not a this is not a big issue sometimes. But yeah, you have to keep it as small as possible, your CSS, to make it maintainable and testable. So yeah, it happens. But, well, it's better than before, so we don't want to go back.
Right, we have here Tassilo. He has again a question.
Again and again. Can you give an example of your CSS file? Because I looked into this kind of living style guide about a year ago because of the front-end conf last year. I really had the same problem at my company. I really love to have a living style guide, but the real application at my company was not possible because we had other constraints. But one thing that strikes me with KSS is I can't really imagine to clutter my CSS or SCSS code with HTML and even Markdown code. And how does it look in your editor? I don't know.
Yeah, it is a first barrier. You have to work on that. I had the same feeling at first, saying like, oh, I don't want to write Markdown in my CSS. But, well, you divide in really a lot of SCSS file, and we generate two CSS, one for the style guide, one for the production, and the one for the production doesn't have the comments. So it's not a matter of performances. And, well, you see the benefits when using it. It's so more structured than before. But all the SCSS files are less than, let's say, 3 screens. Well, so with the comments. Yeah, sometimes you have like, I don't know, 3 CSS declaration for your file, but well, if that works.
Are there any more questions? Okay, in that case, we will go for lunch. But before that, we have an announcement. So there are going to be after lunch from 1 o'clock lightning talks. There are going to be in just this room, but please go to the room that you want to, to the room where the talk that you want to attend afterwards is, because the lightning talks are going to be streamed from here to the tech room. So in order to make it efficient, please go from the beginning to the room where you want to be afterwards. All right, then enjoy lunch.